We're not waiting on any other.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. The time is now 7:07. This is the Historic and Environmental Preservation Board of the City of Opa-locka. Happy Friday, Junior. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Member Ben
Here.
Board Member Samar Brown. Board Member Ferguson.
Here.
Board Member McIntyre.
Here.
Board Member Williams.
Present.
Board Member Smith.
Present.
Chairwoman Ben. And it's confirmed.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll have a moment of silence. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we have any add-on items this evening?
No items.
Am I able to add on an item?
If you can get a majority of the board to vote on it, they
Oh.
can.
Okay, I think if I'm not mistaken, my membership on the board is expiring, and so it was
It was already taken care of. You were brought back onto the board at the last commission meeting.
love it. Thank you. So no add-on items.
Congratulations, Board Member Williams. We're
you.
glad to have you continue in your role. And we don't have any approval of minutes. At this time, do we have any public comments specifically on any agenda items this evening? Anything virtual? Any registered speakers? No? All right. Without further ado, Madam Attorney, I guess we'll go forward with the first resolution.
A resolution, item A1, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, approving and authorizing the City of Opa-locka's application to the Survey and Registration section of the Bureau of Historic Preservation for the city's inclusion in the Florida Certified Local Government Program, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for an effective date.
All right. And
Vice Chair and members of the board, we have Mr. Robinson, who is our city planner, who has been basically working very well with getting this particular aspect of the application moving forward. This is going to be very essential in helping us to seek out historic preservation grants going forth. So he has a presentation that he would like to make.
I think we need a little assistance on the mic,
Is
please.
it underneath the microphone?
Yes.
That thing right there?
Help is coming.
We're all gonna learn today.
So before I go into the CLG item, I just wanted to, I'm sure you've all met her, at least through the telephone, but I introduced Diana Chang, our new board secretary to executive assistant and secretary to this board and the Planning and Zoning Appeals Board. She's brought a new level of professionalism to the boards, and we're very happy to have her. So
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank
We're
you.
very happy to have you. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Randall, speak right into the mic.
Okay, yes. So certified local government. Basically, the way this certified local government status works is that the grant funding is a carrot to get municipal governments to bring their historic preservation programs in line with standards of the Department of the Interior. And I can tell you, just by writing the application, I learned about what the strengths and weaknesses of our ordinance are. And you can see areas where we need to amend and improve our ordinance. So just the application itself is an education to me as someone that minds the Historic Preservation House. And it complements beautifully what Ms. Chang brings to us in that there's a lot of basic managerial things that we should be doing that we don't completely do. There are some I's and some T's that we don't cross for good reason, because staff's time has been limited, but now we have more staff time. We have a level of experience that will enable us to do all these sorts of things that are required. So it makes us eligible to compete for these grant funds, and it helps to bring us our historic preservation program to a level of best practice. And so basically, you saw the application, and you all participated in writing a portion of it with your backgrounds. And so it's before you to hopefully get your support to move forward, to recommend to the City Commission that this is something that the city should support. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Board members, any questions? Comments?
The application looks great. Thank you for pulling this together.
So it's a great learning experience for what I'm in charge of.
I think that as Opa-locka is in pursuit of, as you said, greater funding opportunities, this is a perfect alignment with the Division of Historical Resources and all the leaders at the state level. I think that there's going to be a lot more credibility and respect for what we're working toward here. And this is long overdue, and I'm so happy that you were part of leading this effort, Randall. So thank you for your work on this and for bringing this as a resolution. It's a very important actionable item. I guess without further ado, I guess we just need a motion. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you want to?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, there you
A
go.
motion to present the application to the city for approval.
Second,
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Vice Chair Van Minkle,
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yeah.
Board Member McIntyre,
Yes,
Board Member Williams,
yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes. Okay.
Item passed.
I'm very excited about the next item because by my calculation, this could be the first.
Excuse me, I think we need to read into
Yeah.
record first, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. Item A2, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, designating the Harry Hurt House located at 305 Dunad Avenue within the city as a historic site pursuant to Ordinance 15-03, Historic Preservation, providing for an effective date.
All right, please continue.
Yes, very excited about this next item. By my calculation, and Mr. Gay can correct me if I'm wrong, this could be the first historic designation in the city of Opa-locka since 1991. So
Wow.
this is that's something very special, and couldn't be anything more appropriate than the house of Harry Hurt of our famous Hurt building, one of the signature buildings of Opa-locka. And Board Member Michael has written the designation report, so he's going to make a brief summary of it and also recuse himself so as not to have a conflict. So I'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you very much. Board members, staff, and for anyone paying attention, as Randall had so poignantly stated.
Mr. Vice Chair, if you
Yes.
could, as a part of the recusal, you would need to remove yourself from the dais, but you can
Oh,
make
sure.
a presentation from the,
Sure thing. Let me transition hats.
thank you. Nice hat.
Thank you. I should have brought a spare. Good evening, board and City of Opa-locka. I come to you, well, first of all, 806 Jan Avenue, historic home in Opa-locka, resident Alex Van Meckel. I'm really proud of this moment. This is a long time coming, and I have to stress that this would not have been possible without those that came before. There's quite a few people to name, but most notably Michael Maxwell and Emily Perry that were very much a part of the active and very encouraging historic preservation movement of the late 1980s. This is the work that since that time, and as Randall had pointed out, since about 1991, this work has not been revisited, hasn't been dusted off, has been sitting in an archive, and with a level of intersections and different opportunities and identifications, it came to be known that there were a handful of our original Moorish revival structures that do not have a historic preservation status or designation in the city. I think we have approximately 24 that still stand that's on our local registry, around 17 or so on the National Register of Historic Places. Needless to say, and on the eve of Preservation Month, which is every May, that I'm very excited to celebrate, I think this is a pretty momentous occasion about what this means, where we're at as a community with our preservation activities, as well as being able to put out into the world, like other communities such as Miami Shores, doing some important work in protecting these landmarks for generations to come. So in addition to the 1980s movement and these two specific players that really helped to really catalog and rigorously document all the infrastructure, if you will, a comprehensive survey that was done. Linda Stevenson, Associate Professor, Preservation Architect at the University of Florida. Clearly Larkin, the Director of the Department of Historic Preservation Studies at UF, and about 10 students had come a year ago this time, and during the spring to essentially do a study of Opa-locka at the invitation of the city and with a quick bridge of introduction to myself as a historic homeowner. And it was in that trip that we were physically out on the streets, documenting, cataloging conditions of the historic homes, both registered and non-registered, essentially getting a current, somewhat complete snapshot of where Opa-locka's original plat is in relation to its Moorish revival architecture, its post-war and brutalist style, as well as Art Deco. And yes, we have a few of that too. In the process of doing that, one of the homeowners that we had an interaction with and essentially gawking at and appreciating her house from the street was Maritza Hernandez, a longtime resident of Opa-locka since 2010 and the owner of the now identified Harry Hurt house. And coming up to the house, we knew exactly whose house this was, and this is through the work that Emily Perry and Associates had done in the 80s, but also a very important source of information being A Dream of Araby, the book, the Bible, if you will, of Opa-locka's history from Frank Fitzgerald Bush, that clearly denotes, defines, and shows several pieces of evidence that that was in fact our first town council member's house, Harry Hurt, who, as Randall had mentioned, we have the Hurt building named after, as he was an entrepreneur, a real estate agent, and a town council member in early and founding Opa-locka. So it was through this process and in arriving up to this house, having this interaction with Maritza and becoming quick, fast, and close friends that awarded us this opportunity this evening to take a further examination into this property, its current condition, most of which has stayed fairly intact for these last 96, 97 years, and now affectionately can be known as the Hurt House, which Maritza has proudly started calling since finding out that that's exactly who lived at her house originally. And furthermore, the significance to the founding of this community, both in starting off as a town and then migrating to a city status the following year, is rather significant. So it means a great deal to me. I don't think that Maritz is not here this evening. I know she would have liked to be, but it means a great deal that this house can now be appreciated as a heritage landmark, as a historic site of our community, that the state of Florida will add it and has already added it to its Florida Master Site file. And that's thanks to Linda Stevenson and her team. And now it's one of these homes that we can pass by and have a name for, a story to, and have it connect to the larger fabric of our Arabian Nights and Orientalist identity. So it was very important that I took part in helping to populate and to organize the information that you're being presented with this evening, including original photos of the house, of Harry Hurt himself, as well as some of his other contributions that he made in between 1926 and 1928. So with that being said, I welcome any questions if you have any. But I just appreciate you guys taking a moment to look at this and to know that you're part of a historic moment. This is obviously a collaborative effort.
So since our vice chair is down there, I'm happy to assume the chairmanship just to guide this resolution. So I'd like to open it up for any questions, comments.
Well, I don't
I have
have.
I have a question about procedure. If Alex has recused himself, do we have a quorum?
Yes, you do.
Great question.
Okay, well, I don't really have a question. I just want to make a statement. As a valuable member of this board, as well as a part of this neighborhood, we appreciate everything it is that you have done to bring knowledge to us about our environment in Opa-locka. Most people don't look at it for what it is. They pass through and keep going. But because we are residents here, we pay attention to a whole lot. And I want to say to you from the depths of my heart, I appreciate everything you and this board is doing in our community. And whatever we have to do to push forward to build Opa-locka up, I'm all aboard with it. And I thank you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Any other questions? Yes.
Will the house be designated with a plaque or anything?
That is a question for staff. I know that we had initial discussions of what the plaque would look like. My recommendation was to continue the work of those that came before in keeping with the same style. It's essentially a rectangular brass plaque that says it's an official site of a historic site of the Opa-locka Historic Registry. There are opportunities of exploring something else, but I think in keeping with that great work and the fact that it's been 30 or so years to have gotten to, it just seems like a faithful continuation of what others had decided and put a lot of effort into. But that's certainly a discussion that I think that staff would be willing to receive from the board. Randall, did you want to add anything to that?
We'll be bringing an information item to the board in the coming months on the plaques.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Do we have any documentation where the homeowner has signed and she's agreed for this? I've looked through the materials that are in the board packet. They're great. Thank you for this. But I noticed that there's nowhere where the homeowner has actually agreed. And so maybe there is some type of application that she has signed.
Yes, this is a very good point, and we do have that application. And going forward, this is something that we will include in these designation items.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that we do have that. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we can.
I do have one comment slash feedback. This is where I hope to be on that side to be part of. But inspired by Bob Smith and his recent designation of his beautiful mid-century home in Miami Shores, I think it's incumbent on us to have and be part of collectively, each one of us, a ceremonial, of course, unveiling of Maritza's plaque and an installation of it at her house or perhaps at her physical house, the same way that they did at Board Member Smith's home. I think it's more than deserving, and I think it's something that the commission would certainly like to support. If it's physically at the house or in a more public setting like this, that's of course broadcast. It's definitely the next, looking at the next kind of step and where we're going with this. Hopefully the plaque will be ready, ideally in May, possibly, and we can invite Maritza and her family to accept it. And basically give the same presentation, but in a larger setting. So that would be my only hope and recommendation and what's to come after the commission reviews our resolution this evening.
Thank you for that. I'll entertain a motion. Any seconds?
Board Member Ferguson, second the motion.
Okay. Can we call for the vote?
Vice Chairman Van Meckel.
He can't vote.
Okay. Board Member Ferguson,
Yes.
Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Smith,
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. I hand the gavel back over to you.
Next time I'll have my hat be my proxy. Madam Attorney,
Okay, so for your next resolution, you have item 8.3 that will need to be pulled because it was already passed by the city commission. So they already passed the Tree City application.
okay, thanks for letting us know. So item 4.
Oh, I think you want.
Here's an item I'd like to say a little bit about it, just to summarize what was going to go before the board. And I just want to say that Opa-locka is distinguished by its architecture. It's distinguished by its trees. Opa-locka has more big, beautiful trees than most other places. Perhaps that has something to do with the fact that agriculture was such an important part of for earliest Opa-locka. And we can't leave out that Opa-locka is distinguished by the economic engine of its industrial areas. But this item is about the trees. And Opa-locka has been a Tree City USA off and on since 2014. And hopefully going forward, we will get status every year. I love working here because my boss takes great pride in having Tree City USA status, and it's great to be, making that happen. And just real quick, prerequisites for Tree City USA status are tree board. You are our tree board by virtue of being historic environmental preservation board, that the municipality spend 2% per capita on trees, which comes in Opa-locka to about 32,000. And last year, Opa-locka spent about 121,000 on trees. And finally, an Arbor Day observance. And we are planning an Arbor Day observance for National Arbor Day on Friday, April 26th.
I have a quick question. Are we going to get new signage or additional signage denoting Tree
We're going to
City
get a
status?
new flag. We're really looking forward to, that's kind of where Mr. Gay started on this, is like, we need a new flag. I mean, we can't get a new flag until we get our status. So that's part of what's driving us, is getting that new flag so we can run out the flagpole and have it the Tree City USA flag as well as the American flag out there.
Sure. I would
And-
like to just make a recommendation as they basically work to revitalizing the city gateways, that we also include that, since most municipalities put it at their gateways as well.
We actually do have signage at the gateway presently.
And we have, of course, downstairs by the elevators, our Tree City USA recognition. Also.
Perfect.
An additional note about trees, the Tropical Flowering Tree Society, which puts on the annual World Poinciana Fiesta every year, is going to be working with Alex on a tree planting of Poincianas in Opa-locka
That's
in June as part of the fiesta.
Great.
what a great addition to our great tree canopy, more Royal Poincianas. That's great to hear.
Thank you, board member, for that. All right, moving on to item 4.
Do we need to pass that resolution?
This was already,
Okay.
3 was approved by the commission, as I
Okay.
understand.
Correct. Item 8.4, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, approving the recommendation of the Historic Environmental Preservation Board to approve the annual report from January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023, providing for severability, providing for conflict and repealer, providing for an effective date.
And board, you will also find that this particular item was also forwarded to the city commission for consideration. They voted on this last night as well. So we're basically presenting it to you as information. Normally, the municipalities are required to submit their annual reports, and they're usually due at the end of March. This year, they fell a little behind schedule, and but we felt that we wanted to be a little bit more proactive in getting our report put in place. So we presented the report to you as well as to the city commission for your consideration. So in essence, we're providing it to you as information since the commission has already taken action on it to approve it.
I have a quick question. So in the write-up that I see in this document, it mentions the allocation of $100,000 to fund the competitive grant program. And so I know we talked about that, and it was actually one of my points that I wanted to ask about. Whatever happened with that? Did we actually give away that $100,000?
We did not. We are still working on the application aspect of that particular document that we did review with you all a few months ago. We wanted to make sure that it was legally sufficient. So we're in the process of having that review done. Once that is done, and once the city manager is comfortable with it, we will be releasing it. I anticipate that we will be releasing the application process sometime in mid-May, no later than June, with hopefully a lot of applications for people who have historic homes or people who want to do some restoration to their potential historic home to be a part of that application process.
Great. Thank you. Looking
Yes,
forward to it.
when Mr. Bancole and I went out to distribute flyers on the grant workshop, Mr. Gay had us distribute to not just designated houses, but houses that are on our list potential to be designated. It was a bit more work, but it did generate interest from an owner of a house that is potentially to be designated to apply for designation. I'm learning that applications and programs have more function than just the face of getting the money. It really they have broader powers to, move things along. Like in this case, the existence of this grant, maybe next year, got a homeowner to apply for designation. So let's keep going. Oh, we're already on the last item. Okay. So finally, yes. I don't think there's much I can add. This is something that is required by Miami-Dade. The report is required by Miami-Dade County to assure that municipal historic preservation programs are functioning properly. And so it helps the county ascertain whether a historical preservation program may continue as independent and not receive oversight by the County Historic Preservation Office. And so I didn't notice that Mr. Walker was putting up the slides, but if we could just go to the last slide, Phil. So yes, it's required to have a fully functional process as required by Miami-Dade County in order to maintain separate independent ordinance. Briefly states the basic information of the board members and staff and consultants. And the number of designation reports and certificates of appropriateness prepared. Last year, we didn't have any designation reports, but we did have several important certificates of appropriateness, historic renovations of houses, which are the building block of what makes Opa-locka architecture so special. And then finally, a copy of the agendas and minutes. And I'm very grateful to have Ms. Chang on board to assure that that happens. So again, we're looking for the board to recommend to the commission support for the this year's report filed with the county.
Can I move approval of the annual report after the fact?
Yes, you may.
Okay, I will second.
I move.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Vice Chairman Bickle,
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson,
Yes.
Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Item passed.
All right. Item 9, discussions and presentations.
I have a couple of items to present. Alice, you mentioned that May is National Preservation Month. And I would like to propose that we ask the city commission to pass a proclamation recognizing that. I have it drafted. It's pretty short. I can read it if you like, or you can just take my word for it.
I think maybe we'll take your word for it.
What?
Perhaps
take
we'll
your
take
word
your
for
word
it.
for it.
Okay. So who do I give this to?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I love
We
that.
need a vote from this board to do that?
Yes. Yes, so what you're trying to provide a recommendation to the commission that they recognize the Preservation Month.
That's right.
What about the Opa-locka letterhead?
I move we present the proclamation to the commission.
I second that.
Vice Chairman Meckel,
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson,
Yes.
Board Member McIntyre,
Yes.
Board Member Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Item passed.
The second item is to inform you of the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions annual meeting, which will be held in Palm Beach this year from July 31st to August 4th. And because it is nearby, hopefully some of our board members and other interested parties will make an effort to attend. I've just passed out the basic information and where to get details on their website.
I have a question. Is this something that, as a part of our board service, that the city would be able to cover the cost for, at least a part of it? Registration?
We're actually checking into that to see if there could be some funding available. There was an allocation for the Historic Preservation Board, so we're going to follow up with that and see if there could be some type of a stipend or some type of support to assist.
That's great. Thank you for sharing this with us.
To follow Board Member McIntyre's introduction of this, I would very much encourage the board to join. For those of you that haven't already, the NAPC has a wealth of resources and regular webinars that they give as part of their membership, which is a pretty nominal fee, I would think.
It's only $35 a year.
Yeah,
Not bad.
I just got an expiration notice, so this is ironic that you're bringing this forth. I'm also happy to let you know that the last day of this, August 4th, I made a pitch to NAPC to present Opa-locka as a seminar, and I'm presenting at this conference. So that was going to be something that I would like to share with each of you, and of course for all to be able to enjoy. Just for a little bit of background, Linda Stevenson, who worked with me with the Harry Hurt designation and the inventory from last summer, we both presented at Preservation on Main Street in Ocala last summer, talking about Opa-locka's preservation work, as well as Art Deco weekend earlier this year in January for the Miami Design Preservation League. So we're taking the Dog and Pony Show to West Palm, and we hope that all of you are able to join us and to join NAPC because they're great.
Great excuse to take Brightline to West Palm. And
That's a great idea, actually. Thanks for the reminder.
Well, you do have Tri-Rail right next to
Well,
it.
That's true too.
Thriftiness is important.
But if you want your meal, you got to go backwards to go forwards. Thank you, Board Member McIntyre. Did any of the other board members have any discussion items?
I do have some comments. I don't know the difference between, I know we've got discussions and then board comments.
I had, Madam Attorney, I guess I had the same question. If I have a question or comment, but it's kind of more or less discussion item, could it be one or another, or should we just go forward to item 10?
You could probably go forward to item 10, but usually with discussion and presentations, it's usually something that's more structured and something that you guys have set out in your agenda previously. And then board comments would be, stuff that you guys individually would like to speak on.
Sure. Okay. So I guess are we comfortable moving forward to 10?
Yep.
Member? Okay. Well, let's go forward to board comments. Board Member Williams.
Yes. So I wanted to see if it would be possible for us to set a schedule for our meeting. So I know that we have a really hard time getting meetings on the calendar. This is one busy group of people. And so I wondered if it would be feasible for us to say that we would meet the second Monday of every month, or maybe every other month, and call that our dates. And hopefully if folks put it on their calendar, we might do a better job at getting quorum, but wanted to make sure that this group is coming together on a more consistent basis if possible.
It's understandable that you might not be aware, but the board does have the fourth Thursday of every month as its time slot.
Okay.
So I think it's about us sticking to that.
Okay. So
And-
I will put that on my calendar, the fourth Thursday of
Yes,
every month,
please.
and would love to then hopefully just march towards that happening. Even if we're not coming together to vote, I think there's probably some discussion sometimes that we can have as well. So would love to see us just getting together more frequently.
Yes, and on that note, we're required to have 6 meetings a year. Don't have to meet every month, but we have to have a minimum of 6 meetings a year, which probably leaves every month left in the year except November and December.
Okay. I do have one other thought. I wanted to see if we can update our City of Opa-locka website with information about historic preservation. I think the administration and the board has done a lot of great work getting us to where we are. And so even if it's a description of just the historic offerings here, a list of some of the buildings and structures, like I wonder if that is something that we can make happen. And even for us homeowners, having something on the site, and it might actually already exist, but like the color scheme and things that we need to know as homeowners of historic structures, what are the rules that we need to follow, if that can also be included on the website.
Demystifying things.
Yep.
Just to let you know, the city overall is going through an update process with its entire website. And there are some aspects that we'd like to include from our planning and zoning department, and to have a subsection specifically for historic preservation in that. So we are looking to include that.
Wonderful. Do we know what the timing is on that new website?
There's some guys that are in a glass room behind us that are working feverishly on it. As soon as they let us know that we're ready to go public, we'll let you know.
Sounds good. And then I think the last plea that I have is for us to include more tree topics on this agenda. So I really love that we had one today. So thank you guys for pushing that forward. And I just wonder what this board can do to be more involved in tree discussions, particularly since I know the Board of Commissioners, the board, the commissioners are tackling this on a regular basis. I know that they've passed a few pieces of legislation. And so I wonder how we can make sure that we're utilizing our voice, knowing that it is included in our charter. And so I just wonder how we can begin to engage in this discussion, knowing that many of us are quite passionate about this.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because if you take a look at the memo that's included in your packet regarding the Tree City USA application, I have a suggestion in there for how possibly to engage the board in the city's ongoing work with regard to the urban forest. And that is, perhaps if everyone's agreed and amenable to it, perhaps we could have Mr. King Leonard, who oversees the city's urban forestry program, to give a report at a board meeting on the things that his crew has done over the past month. It's a suggestion.
I would love that. That's a great start. Yep. Thank you.
And hopefully Mr. Leonard will have the time to be able to do that. We have to make sure that he's available.
Okay.
Just if I could just add a little bit to that. Over the past 2 years, Mr. Leonard, along with our capital improvements department, has been very active in planting trees around the city. You may notice along Opa-locka Boulevard and in some other areas through our parks. We've had a series of tree plantings that have been taking place over the past couple of years. I think we've had in excess of maybe 120 to 130 trees planted. And they're actually looking at doubling that number over the next year. So as we find out the information as to where these plantings are going to take place, we would like to celebrate that and would like to let the board know as well. In addition to that, this board is supposed to be entertaining certificates of appropriateness as it relates to the removal of trees.
Yep.
We have not really had a lot of applications in relationship to that. I think there may be one or two that could be pending. And it really depends on whether the tree that's being asked to be removed is an invasive tree or whether it's a native tree. Evasive trees, in most cases, you may not necessarily need a permit to remove those because of their nature. But when it comes to native trees, there is a mitigation process. So that is supposed to be brought before this particular board, and you're supposed to have a say on that. So we are looking forward to bringing that aspect to this Historic and Environmental Preservation Board for action.
I would just like to make a request that the powers that be plant shade trees. Palms are nice, but they don't provide shade. And with the heat rising, we need all the shade we can get.
I like to say that the urban forest is like a birthday cake. The trees are the cake and the palm trees are the icing. You can't have a birthday cake without cake and icing, so both are important.
Board member Smith, Ferguson, any comments?
I had a question. I have a question. With the removal of the trees, and still, most people, they want to cut them down and get rid of them, but with the case of removal from the yards, once they put the application in, can we just relocate the trees?
Through the chair, we have had that aspect take place a few times. It's really, especially if it's a native tree, it becomes somewhat of a delicate situation to basically maintain the tree through its change in location. So that is something as a part of the mitigation process that is negotiated.
There is language in our tree protection ordinance that speaks to moving a tree if it's a significant tree, then it lays out moving it as one option in addressing getting rid of it.
Okay, second question, with the removal or relocation of the tree, let's say that we can get it where it's relocated. Does that expense fall on the city or does it fall on the homeowner that's trying to get it removed?
That's another good question, and that's usually answered through the mitigation process. There's a cost associated with either cutting down the tree or relocating the tree. And in most cases, the relocation cost is much higher than just cutting the tree down. So that's something that will have to be handled on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
But it's great that you are thinking about this and wanting to know. Now, seriously.
thank you.
All excellent questions. Thank you.
Since we're on the topic of trees, for those on the board that don't know, there's quite a discussion about one of our stately slash pines that very well might go back to the city's founding date. That's on Scheherazade, on a vacant lot that's to be developed between Baghdad and Pervez. And I know that this is it's started to go viral amongst arborists and environmentalists in the South Florida region. People have been coming to take my tours specifically to know where this tree is located and inquiring about what's going on with it. So for the benefit of anyone that's watching, is there any status? Because I know that the commission, I believe, recently reviewed the site plan or the development that's supposed to be happening on that location and parcel.
Through the chair, the site that's being considered for development is still being reviewed in essence. It has not been presented before the commission for their consideration as of yet. And the reason being is that a portion of the site is also being considered, which is under city ownership, to be a part of a joint venture project. So we have not fully fleshed out that particular process and brought that before the commission. But the administration is aware of the concerns as it relates to that tree on that particular site, and it's actually on the portion that's under private ownership. So we are working through that particular process. Hopefully, we'll be able to convince the developer to build around the tree, if that can be an opportunity to do that, and basically keep the tree as it is on site. But if we have to go through a mitigation process, we'll have to look at whether there would need to be a relocation possibility for the tree, or whether additional landscaping would need to be planted if the tree is to be removed.
Quick question. Do we know what is being developed on that site?
It is a multifamily mixed-use development. The scale of it is somewhat in flux, but it is going to be a significant type of development to take place.
It's really, that tree is like, I feel it here and I want to see it live on, absolutely. But I also have to say that it's exactly the kind of development that we need in Opa-locka, especially in downtown Opa-locka.
Thank you.
Since
One
we're
last,
also,
one last thing on the tree, we are probably going to have our Arbor Day observance at the corner of Sherazade and Purvis. So it'll be in view of the tree. So the tree will be there at the observance, and it's a great opportunity if you come to be able to see the tree.
thank you. I know that some time ago and early on, I had identified that Opa-locka was a bird sanctuary. And I don't know if that's an annual renewal of any sort, or if it's a kind of a one-time thing that has a sign in a gateway or two, but it's springtime, y'all, and I don't know if you've been hearing how many birds are outside, but I'm very proud that my property is home to many of them. So I'm just curious to know, since we're on the topic of trees, but we also think of ecosystems that are taking advantage of those trees. Is there anything further that we can consider or build upon as it relates to bird sanctuary and habitat creation?
Alex, you have mentioned that before, and it's something that I need to educate myself on, and I will. And by this time, or by the next board meeting, I will have the answers to that.
That was just a genuine question. The blue jay outside my window yesterday reminded me of it. Okay, so this is a question that I have for staff as it relates to, well, this is two parts. It's historic preservation and oversight of the maintenance and protection of these sites, but it's also just like standard living conditions. In particular, a property that I'm concerned with that is a historic landmark of our registry on Sesame Street doesn't appear to have a roof on it, and yet people are very much occupying the land that it's around. And I know there's a lot of conversations going on at the commission level. I believe there was something that had passed or was discussed last night about ADUs in the form of trailers, but it just so happens that this one property in particular is one of these problem properties in this particular regard, but also the structure itself is not livable, does not have a roof on it. It's just the four walls, and it can be quite clearly seen from the street. So, you know, I would like to believe that we're not like hovering over our historic property owners, but there are some that are very questionably being maintained or in some way potentially being illegally occupied. So I don't know. I'm just, instead of asking the question, I'm making more of a point to say that we need to be mindful of this, because this is a glaring example of what's happened in other vagrant properties. But unlike those properties where people are trespassing on them, people are very much thriving and living off of and have erected a fence, a new fence around this particular one. And I imagine that they would have had to go through a building permitting process to even just get the fence and have that be inspected, which then would have prompted the question of what's going on this property and why is there no roof on it? And I'm happy to follow up with staff on that, but I just want to make sure that that's on somebody's radar, because it's unsightly and it just looks unusual, especially for a landmark that's essentially half compromised and collapsed.
Yes, one thing that we are very sensitive to, and is basically a mandate that's a part of this particular board, is demolition by neglect. And we know that in some cases, you have properties that are acquired through whatever particular means, and they may not necessarily be for home ownership. It may be more of an investment. So we have to be very careful as we approach the property owners in trying to make that determination. But nonetheless, there are tools that are at our disposal through code compliance and through the natural permitting process. If they got a fence, that does begin to put eyes on the situation, especially if they went through a permitting process and we signed off on it. So we will definitely bring that to the attention of the other departments that we work with and make sure that there is some follow-up.
I appreciate that. Second item that I wanted to bring up that we've talked about in the past that the county has moved forward with and other municipalities have adopted is a matrix, administrative approvals of permits versus what would require board review, more considerate of, aesthetics or, characteristical changes to the exterior. Do we have any status on that? Because I know that we have a model from the city we talked about, and I remember Board Member Williams adding her contribution about carports and things of that sort. Is there any status on there, or is there something that we can review in the near future or this year as an agenda item?
That is something that we've been kind of working on for quite some time. We've had changes in personnel during that time period. So we have to basically get back on that particular process and bring that up to snuff. So I would say if not at the next meeting, but the following meeting, probably during the summertime, we should have some type of information in place that we can bring forth to the board.
Thank you. And I think the question is two parts, both as a follow-up, just in improving our systems and protocols, especially as an incentive. Because even in the experience of the HURT designation, the first comment was, I don't want more oversight of my house or an additional kind of blockage to me being able to take care of my property. And it was a teachable moment for the homeowner to be told, like, beyond just this board ensuring that the windows and the door are in keeping with the style, true to the period, et cetera, that there really wouldn't be any sort of preventative sort of actions for them to make improvements to their homes. So the second part of the question really was about in what instance here and now, with there not being a matrix, would a permit be approved for a historic property other than, for instance, a roof, which I imagine, like, for example, I pulled a permit on my house that's designated and it doesn't prompt the review of the board, but for example, windows, I would assume that needs to come to the board still as it currently stands.
As it stands right now, pretty much anything that is visible from the public right of way is subject to this board's approval for historic properties.
From the right, like essentially the main street that it sits on.
If you can see it from the main street, it has to be brought before this board.
Okay. I guess I ask because I had the experience of pulling a permit that I didn't imagine would have review anytime soon for windows on my house that went straight forward for approval for a contractor to begin work with no historic board review. And rather than calling it for what it is, which is exactly what I'm doing, but my hope in saying that is that it's not becoming a regular practice of our historic properties, because then it defeats the purpose of a preservation board or advisory board, let alone a program. I know, and I'm very sensitive to, and I've had countless discussions with homeowners about what it is to designate a home, and that a Coral Gables is the antithesis of what I would want for Opa-locka, because unlike them, I do believe in somewhat of a compromise related to making concessions, but also doing the best we can to inform decisions that are in keeping with the character and the uniqueness of these landmarks. In this particular case, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Thankfully, it was in keeping with and was bringing back what should have been. I just want us to be valued as an advisory board, the board members to be able to review and to see what it looks like to see period appropriate windows, doors, and things of that nature, and to also be a resource to our homeowners to know that a lot of these decisions are in fact not cost prohibitive. Colonial grid styles, certain types of finishes of wooden doors on the fronts, they're very much comparable market value to other standard designs that have been allowed on our historic homes. So at the moments in which we can interject the decision that is being made to put this style door, but in fact, us as a board are going to make the request and recommendation to go with another option that's around the same value. That is what we're here to help do for our historic homeowners, for staff. And we certainly, between all of us, have a wealth of knowledge. We're not trying to tell people what color to paint their house, but when it comes to those characteristics, it's very important. Well,
Actually, in some aspects, we are kind of
well,
making a suggestion as to painting
then
houses.
that's great.
But just to let you know, in that particular case, because we were aware of the previous application that had come before the board and that was approved, there were certain aspects of improvements that we saw the permits coming through for those particular improvements, because that had already been approved to take place. The administration basically stepped in and said that that particular item has already been dealt with by the board, and we approved it administratively.
I see. And I guess that's exactly my point, is to enable staff to be able to do that. I just wanted to know if that, I mean, you answered my question essentially, that it's in place to allow for it in some way. I wanted that to be checked out accordingly. So,
Yes.
And the only last thing I want to say, mainly for the benefit of historic homeowners, is the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation. Dolly, I'm sure you caught sight of this recently, but they actually released a preservation toolkit that's available digitally on their website. So I would encourage anyone that's interested, that has a historic home or wants to be a resource to an owner of one, the floridatrust.org has a newly minted preservation toolkit, and they're entertaining potentially coming down, I was going to say next May, but it's actually next month, May, to do a workshop potentially for Opa-lockans and historic homeowners. So I'll be sure to let staff know what date, time that might look like that they're looking at. They're just taking advantage of a trip they're already making down to South Florida. But because of their awareness of what we're working toward in our first designation in 30 years, they're particularly eager to kind of use Opa-locka as a, not use, but essentially provide a resource to homeowners, which I think would be wonderful in dispelling some of the concerns about restoring and costs associated, of which many you can't get away from. But needless to say, I'll make sure to let staff know as soon as they are going to come forth with a decision on that. And that's all for me.
I have one more thing.
Yes.
Question, how long do the chairmanship positions last? Like, do those expire?
I'm going off of memory. I believe the chairmanships are supposed to be dealt with on an annual basis. That's usually the way that they've been done with other boards. So we have to pretty much check the calendar to see when that is supposed to take place. I believe it's supposed to take place in January of each year.
Okay, and I don't think we met in January, so would love it if we could
This is
potentially.
actually your first meeting of the year. So
Okay, so I'd love it if we can add that to our agenda for our next meeting.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, Board Member Smith.
I just wanted to inquire who, or is it being done at all, is taking care of the monitoring of board members' attendance in terms of the absences. I know on any municipal or county board I've ever served on, that it was, if you had 3 unexcused absences over a period, I believe it was, then you're automatically removed from the board and replaced. And I just wanted to see if that's actually taking place because, of our past problems and trying to gin up a quorum for a meeting. And, I would like to see that improve.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that is something that internally we've had numerous discussions on. And it's not just germane to this board, it's all of the boards overall. It's great that we had have an opportunity here to meet quorum, but there have been numerous times when we did not meet quorum. We have put together a package which I believe we will be bringing before you at your next meeting to basically say that we have some new rules and criterias for the board members to meet. And within that package, there is a section that will deal with absenteeism, basically making sure that those board members that want to be on the board do the proper protocols to let people know if they're not going to be available for the meetings as well. We are looking at also changing the number of board members. This particular board has a board membership number that goes up to about 9. But there is some flexibility in regards to that, being that we only have 7 members in place right now. So we are looking at modifying those particular numbers, and looking at having alternate members for the board. So we're about 80 to 90% complete with our rules and regulations package. We will be bringing that forward to you.
It was always my understanding that this was governed by state statute, basically, as opposed to municipal or county rules. And I say that because on other boards that I've served, it's always been the same thing, whether it was a Dade County board or whether it was a Miami Shores Village board or anything like that. So, I mean, if it's already, if there's already a ruling in place, it's like, are we observing that ruling and does it exist?
This is one of the things that the application for certified local government status requires you to realize where you're at and what the best practice is. So that's in the application. And I think what it goes back to is the Department of the Interior standards for best practices in preservation programs. So that's a benefit of CLG application is dotting the i's and crossing the t's on board membership and terms and so on, absenteeism.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Board members, any last comments? No? Before I forget, I encourage and welcome, I know some of our board members are coming for the first annual manifest this Saturday, which also serves as the launch of the city's first permanent historical experience, which is very exciting. It's 15 stations for those that don't know, 15 stations of interpretive markers that have been placed very strategically and sequentially throughout the downtown area, starting with chapter number 1 of 15 at our historic fire station, which is the founding of Opa-locka as a town in 1926. So Manifest was inspired, rooted in and surrounding Opa-locka's heritage and its architectural connection to the Middle East and North Africa, aka MENA. And it's also a play off of Manifest, in case you guys didn't get that. But needless to say, it's a day-long festival. We've got belly dance workshops, not just performances, but you can learn how to belly dance from a certified, wonderful woman, Valerique. We've got the Sassa African Dance Group, hopefully a handful of food trucks, as well as a number of other experiences that we're very proud to bring to the city as a co-produced event with 10 North Group. And some other community partners and sponsors. So big invitation and welcome. And it's free, most importantly, other than what you want to buy in terms of food and et cetera. So please come out, board members, 11 a.m. is the official ribbon cutting VIP for the Heritage Trail itself. I personally would like to invite you and welcome you for that, as well as the community watching and staff, of course. And then the follow with the 12 to 5 day long festival, which will certainly put Opa-locka on a higher echelon of not just event production, but to also bring the public to this forum, the space, to see the very much in progress and very exciting work that's being done in our historic city hall. So I'm very excited about Manifest this Saturday, April 13th, and motion to adjourn. No. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, thank you.